There's a legitimate explanation why your gasoline expenses continue to increase, and it isn't solely about escalating fuel costs. Something occurs during refueling that silently costs motorists more than $2 billion annually, and the majority remain completely unaware. Right now, we're exposing 15 fuel conservation strategies that filling stations prefer you remain ignorant about. And number 5 by itself can put over $1,000 back in your pocket each year without requiring any investment whatsoever. Keep watching because what follows will fundamentally transform how you approach refueling. Strategy 15. The dispensing velocity technique. When you arrive at the dispenser and press the trigger completely, it appears to be the fastest method to resume your journey, but it's actually costing you money. Dispensing at full throttle generates turbulence within the delivery nozzle, converting the gasoline into countless tiny bubble formations. And here's what service stations deliberately avoid discussing. Dispensers calculate volume flow, not the genuine usable liquid mass. Therefore, whenever vapor registers as liquid, you're purchasing fuel that never actually enters your vehicle's tank. Those air pockets dissipate well before they can settle. However, the measurement device continues billing you for them. Dispensing equipment evaluations demonstrate that rapid pumping can diminish the actual fuel transferred by 2 to 6%. Depending on equipment age and ambient temperature, this equals forfeiting a complete fill-up annually without detection. However, reducing pump speed transforms everything. A controlled flow maintains fuel at lower temperatures, increases density, and improves stability. Bubble formation decreases. The measurement device achieves superior precision, and you receive closer to what you're genuinely purchasing. NIST calibration specialists validate that slower dispensing reliably delivers the most accurate measurements due to decreased aeration, and it merely extends your fill-up by roughly 20 to 30 seconds. Service stations will never caution you regarding this because rapid dispensing means swift customer turnover and increased revenue. But for regular motorists and automotive technicians, it represents one of the most straightforward methods to save money immediately. And if you believe losing fuel during dispensing is problematic, wait until you discover the premium upgrade that millions of motorists purchase every single day. Strategy 14. The premium gasoline deception. Premium gasoline appears like an enhancement. More powerful, cleaner, superior performance. But for the majority of motorists, it's among the most costly and pointless errors at the dispenser. Service stations appreciate when you select premium because the revenue margin on higher octane fuel can exceed regular by 20 to 30%. But here's the reality. If your automobile isn't explicitly engineered for premium, you're incinerating currency, quite literally. Octane rating doesn't indicate superior fuel. It quantifies detonation resistance, not engine purification or output. And according to the American Automobile Association, approximately 16.5 million motorists utilize premium in automobiles that don't mandate it, squandering in excess of $2 billion annually. Power plants constructed for standard gasoline are calibrated for a particular combustion sequence. Introducing premium doesn't enhance their strength. It actually decelerates combustion marginally, delivering zero performance advantages and absolutely no miles per gallon improvement. In reality, introducing premium into a regular power plant can cause it to operate less effectively because the combustion properties no longer correspond with what the electronic control unit is configured for. No additional output, no improved economy, no cleaner components, merely an inflated receipt. Premium should exclusively be utilized when the automaker mandates it, not when you feel particularly cautious. And if you believe purchasing the incorrect fuel grade is expensive, the following one affects you before the gasoline even arrives at your tank because a supply vehicle can compromise your fuel within moments. Strategy 13. The fuel supply vehicle deception. If you've ever entered a station and observed a massive delivery tanker positioned beside the dispensers, here's the reality. You should immediately depart. Most motorists don't comprehend this, but the instant a supply vehicle is transferring into the subterranean tanks, the fuel you purchase becomes among the dirtiest, least effective gasoline you'll ever introduce into your automobile. Here's the explanation. Subterranean tanks contain thousands of gallons of fuel, and gradually particulate matter accumulates at the foundation. Oxidation, contaminants, ethanol deposits, even microscopic metallic fragments. When the tanker introduces fresh fuel, it violently agitates all that debris. According to petroleum specialists, the disturbance can elevate tank sediment concentrations by as much as 400% for numerous hours. And if you refuel during that time frame, the contaminated blend transfers directly into your tank, diminishing fuel quality and damaging miles per gallon. Contaminated fuel compels your power plant to combust less effectively, causing your automobile to operate richer and decreasing economy. In certain automobiles, particularly older models, it can even obstruct injectors or strain the fuel delivery pump. You ultimately pay complete price for fuel that produces less output and generates more deterioration. Service stations won't caution you. They prefer the queue progressing. But if safeguarding your power plant and conserving miles per gallon matters, you should consistently avoid refueling when the tanker is present. And following this, we address a misconception almost every motorist accepts. One that appears intelligent, but delivers zero conservation with the concealed reality service stations remain silent about. Strategy 12. The morning refueling misconception. You've likely encountered the traditional recommendation. Refuel early in the morning when the fuel maintains lower temperature. It's among the most widespread fuel conservation misconceptions, and service stations benefit whenever people misunderstand its mechanics. The reality is contemporary subterranean tanks maintain fuel at a consistent temperature throughout the year. Whether it's 6 a.m. or 6 p.m., the gasoline positioned 10 feet underground only varies by 1 to 3 degrees F, nowhere near sufficient to provide you a quantifiable conservation. Therefore, no morning fuel doesn't magically provide you increased gas per gallon. But here's the component service stations don't want you understanding. While temperature barely fluctuates throughout the day, seasonal fuel formulations do. During summer, fuel is formulated with reduced volatility to prevent evaporation. During winter, it's formulated to ignite more readily, but that winter formulation contains reduced energy per gallon, producing a natural 1 to 3 miles per gallon reduction for most motorists. Therefore, while the morning misconception is primarily false, the energy differential between seasonal formulations is absolutely genuine, and service stations never mention it because it reveals why your economy mysteriously increases and decreases every few months. Comprehending this positions you ahead of the typical motorist. And if you believe the morning misconception is misleading, wait until you discover how certain dispensers silently shortchange you even when you execute everything correctly without violating a single regulation. Strategy 11. The dispenser calibration deception. This one is so inconspicuous that even experienced motorists overlook it, but it silently appropriates fuel from millions of individuals every single day. Fuel dispensers don't maintain perfect precision indefinitely. Gradually, the internal measurement devices drift, delivery hoses deteriorate, and control valves loosen. And here's the uncomfortable reality. A dispenser that underdispenses fuel by even 1% can lawfully function until its subsequent inspection, which may be months distant. According to state weights and measures examinations, approximately 6 to 10% of dispensers fail precision evaluations annually, and the overwhelming majority of those failures shortchange the consumer, not the establishment. In certain jurisdictions, examiners have discovered dispensers transferring as much as 13 ounces less per gallon. That's almost a complete cup of fuel absent, yet you're still purchasing it. Older dispensers and low-volume stations are the worst violators because their components deteriorate more gradually and remain unchecked longer. Establishments also recognize that most individuals never examine the inspection label. Therefore, dispensers can operate imprecisely for extended durations without objections. The optimal method to safeguard yourself: avoid dispensers with faded, expired, or absent inspection labels, and stay away from establishments where the dispensers appear aged, soiled, or inadequately maintained. If this is enlightening you, press the like button so YouTube recognizes this is the variety of authentic money-conserving content motorists genuinely require. And stay engaged. We're only midway through the techniques service stations prefer you never decipher. Strategy 10. The concealed air filtration connection. Most motorists consider the air filtration element as a minor, inexpensive component with almost negligible influence on fuel economy. But that's precisely why service stations never discuss it. An obstructed air filtration element compels your power plant to labor harder, consuming more fuel merely to sustain normal output. According to the U.S. Department of Energy, a severely contaminated air filtration element can reduce fuel economy by as much as 10%. particularly in older automobiles that depend heavily on airflow for appropriate combustion. Here's the genuine problem. Numerous motorists proceed 20,000 to 30,000 miles without examining their filtration element, even though particulates, allergens, and road contamination accumulate substantially faster in urban and highway operation. When airflow is restricted, your power plant enriches the fuel blend to compensate. That indicates more fuel, reduced economy, and unnecessary strain on the ignition plugs, oxygen sensors, and emissions converter. The worst component: service stations benefit from this because every mile you operate with a restricted filtration element consumes more fuel than your power plant genuinely requires. They'll gladly sell you additional gas, but never remind you to examine the component that could conserve you money. The correction requires less than a minute. Extract it, position it toward the sun, and if you cannot observe light penetrating it, substitute it. And following this, we're progressing to a strategy that conceals right on your tires, yet influences your miles per gallon more than any fuel enhancement product ever marketed. Strategy 9. The tire inflation reality. If you desire an immediate boost in fuel economy, disregard enhancement products. Begin with your tires. Underinflated tires are among the largest, most prevalent miles per gallon destroyers on the pavement, and service stations absolutely appreciate it because it compels you to consume more fuel. Underinflated tires can diminish fuel economy by as much as 3%. And the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration discovered that only 19% of motorists maintain their tires at the appropriate inflation. Here's where the genuine strategy emerges. The specification on your operator's door frame isn't engineered for fuel effectiveness. It's determined by comfort and control for a completely loaded automobile. 5 occupants, cargo, and baggage. Most individuals operate alone or with one occupant, indicating your optimal inflation is frequently a few psi higher than the door jamb recommendation. That marginal increase diminishes rolling friction, enhances tire deterioration, and boosts miles per gallon immediately. Meanwhile, reduced inflation compels your power plant to labor harder, dragging the automobile across more surface contact. You consume more fuel without comprehending why. Examine your tires monthly, particularly during temperature fluctuations. And now, we're progressing to a strategy concealing inside your operating habits. One that silently destroys miles per gallon faster than reduced tire inflation ever could. Strategy 8. The Brief Journey Fuel Destroyer. If your daily operation includes rapid hops to the market, educational institution, or workplace, you're losing more fuel than you realize. Brief journeys are among the largest, most disregarded miles per gallon destroyers, and service stations silently profit from it. The reality is straightforward. Your power plant is least effective when it's cold, until it achieves appropriate operating temperature, typically 190 to 220 GWF. The electronic control unit enriches the fuel blend, consuming more gasoline to maintain the power plant operating smoothly. According to the EPA, brief journeys can elevate fuel consumption by as much as 30%, particularly in colder conditions. That's why 2 identical automobiles can have dramatically different economy depending on how frequently they warm up. The emissions converter also requires heat to function appropriately. Therefore, until it's heated, emissions increase and effectiveness decreases even further. Motorists who execute several 1 to 3 mile journeys daily consume far more fuel than motorists who take longer, steady operations. Service stations appreciate this pattern. They recognize you'll return sooner. If you can consolidate errands or arrange routes to diminish cold initiations, your miles per gallon will climb immediately. And now the following strategy targets something concealing right in your cargo area, introducing weight you don't even comprehend you're purchasing for every time you operate. Strategy 7. The concealed weight penalty. Most motorists have no awareness their automobile is transporting additional weight every single day, weight that silently consumes into fuel economy. Even minor increases matter. Just 100 lb of introduced load can reduce miles per gallon by 1 to 2%. And the heavier your automobile, the harder your power plant must labor to maintain it progressing. The deceptive component is how readily this additional weight accumulates. Aged tools, occupation equipment, athletic gear, infant strollers, arbitrary boxes, most of it remains in the cargo area for months without being contacted. Rooftop racks and cargo containers are even worse. When left installed, They introduce both weight and wind friction, reducing fuel effectiveness by as much as 10 to 15%. Even when completely vacant, service stations never mention this because a lighter automobile means fewer refuelings. But clearing out unnecessary items is among the fastest methods to enhance economy without investing a single dollar. Dedicate a few minutes to empty the cargo area, extract unused accessories, and abandon the rooftop hardware you're not utilizing. And following this, we explore into a strategy concealing inside your power plant. One that elevates fuel consumption even faster than additional weight. Strategy 6. The incorrect lubricant, viscosity deception. Most motorists believe lubricant is merely lubricant, but the viscosity you select has a substantial influence on fuel economy. If your power plant is operating lubricant that's excessively thick, it generates additional internal resistance. Your crankshaft, camshafts, and bearings must push through heavier friction, compelling the power plant to consume more fuel merely to sustain normal function. Laboratory evaluation on contemporary power plants demonstrates that utilizing a thicker than recommended lubricant can reduce fuel economy by 2 to 5%. And in cold conditions, the loss can be even higher. That's because thick lubricant doesn't circulate rapidly during warm-up, maintaining friction concentrations high and postponing the power plant's capability to achieve peak effectiveness. Conversely, utilizing lubricant that's excessively thin can elevate deterioration, not merely miles per gallon loss, because the protective coating breaks down under high load and temperature. That's why every automaker specifies a viscosity determined by power plant tolerances, climate, and effectiveness standards. Adhere to the recommended grade. And if you reside in hotter or colder climates, select the version your manual lists for those conditions. The appropriate lubricant liberates output, enhances miles per gallon, and safeguards your power plant for the extended duration. If you're discovering something new with every strategy, make certain you subscribe so you never overlook these concealed automobile-conserving techniques. And trust me, the final 5 strategies are the ones service stations fear the most. Continue watching. Strategy 5. The fuel cap. Leakage. Most motorists never contemplate their fuel cap. Yet, it's among the largest concealed explanations fuel economy decreases. A loose, fractured, or deteriorated fuel cap permits fuel vapors to escape. And your evaporative emission system must compensate by enriching the fuel blend. Even a minor leakage can activate the evaporative monitor to operate more frequently, elevating fuel consumption by as much as 2 to 3%. What makes this worse is how widespread it is. Millions of automobiles activate the check fuel cap or evaporative leak notification annually. And in numerous cases, the perpetrator is merely a $10 cap that's not sealing appropriately. When vapors escape, your system loses pressure, compelling the electronic control unit to adjust fuel calculations to sustain balance. A straightforward twist until it engages, or substituting a deteriorated gasket, can immediately restore effectiveness. And following this, we progress to a strategy concealing in plain visibility. Your climate control selections are consuming more fuel than you realize. Strategy 4. The air conditioning versus windows miles per gallon confrontation. You've encountered the misconception. Deactivate the air conditioning to conserve gas. But the reality is more complicated. At reduced velocities, urban operation, parking areas, neighborhoods, operating the air conditioning can diminish fuel economy by as much as 10% because the compressor loads the power plant. But once you achieve highway velocities, lowering the windows generates aerodynamic resistance that can cost as much as 8 to 15% miles per gallon, depending on the automobile's configuration. Therefore, what's the genuine answer? Utilize air conditioning at highway velocities, windows at reduced velocities. That equilibrium minimizes power plant load and resistance, providing you the optimal economy in both conditions. Service stations won't communicate this nuance. They prefer the traditional air conditioning squanders fuel misconception, because confused motorists squander more gas overall. But now that you comprehend how airflow and resistance genuinely operate, your economy increases immediately. And speaking of airflow, the following strategy involves something even smaller: tiny sensors that silently destroy fuel economy when they malfunction. Strategy 3. The sensor sabotage. Contemporary power plants depend on sensors to calculate fuel calculations, and even minor sensor drift can destroy your miles per gallon. A malfunctioning oxygen sensor, for instance, can cause the power plant to operate rich, reducing fuel economy by as much as 15 to 20% without activating a check power plant light immediately. A contaminated mass airflow sensor can distort readings sufficiently to compel the electronic control unit to introduce more fuel than required, costing you money on every journey. The problem is that these issues occur gradually. Your miles per gallon decreases over months, so most motorists don't detect. Service stations profit because a richer blend means more frequent refuelings. A straightforward mass airflow cleaning or substituting a sluggish oxygen sensor can restore miles per gallon immediately. And following this, we examine a subtle, frequently disregarded habit, idling, that squanders more fuel than most individuals comprehend. Strategy 2. The idling deception. Remaining stationary with the power plant operating feels harmless, particularly during rapid stops or warm-ups. But idling squanders fuel at a shocking rate. A typical power plant consumes 0.3 to 0.6 gallon while idling, depending on displacement. That indicates merely 10 minutes daily can squander more than 30 gallons of fuel annually with 0 miles traveled. Contemporary power plants warm up optimally by operating gently, not idling. And prolonged idle durations activate richer fuel calculations because the power plant isn't under load, further decreasing economy. Numerous delivery and transportation drivers forfeit hundreds of dollars annually to unnecessary idling without comprehending it. Deactivating the power plant for stops exceeding 30 seconds conserves more fuel than maintaining it operating. And following this, we conclude with among the most disregarded strategies. Something that appears harmless but transmits your miles per gallon in the incorrect direction every time. Strategy 1. The velocity optimal range. Most automobiles have a velocity range where fuel economy peaks, and exceeding it squanders fuel faster than motorists comprehend. For most automobiles, the optimal range is 45 to 60 mph. Once you surpass that range, aerodynamic resistance elevates exponentially. At 70 mph, your automobile can forfeit as much as 15% miles per gallon, and at 80 mph, that penalty can achieve 25% or more. It's not the power plant, it's the atmosphere. Resistance multiplies as velocity elevates, compelling your power plant to labor dramatically harder. Even powerful, fuel-effective automobiles suffer once they cross that threshold. Operating merely 5 to 10 mph slower on the highway can conserve entire gallons over extended journeys. Service stations won't mention it because higher velocities consume more fuel and transport you back to the dispenser faster. And there you have it. 15 fuel conservation strategies service stations preferred you never discover. If even one assisted you, imagine the conservation when you utilize all of them together. Before you depart, press like, subscribe, and comment. Which strategy shocked you the most? And for even more conservation, examine my video on reset techniques that resolve 95% of concealed automobile problems.